Hi there, everybody. Welcome back to Lockdown Lessons Part 49. And with me today, I've got Nick Smith from GosuRabbit Limited. So firstly, I'd just like to say a big hello to you, Nick.
Hello, Phil. Thank you very much for inviting me on. It's a pleasure in sunny old London today for once.
Absolutely. It's been, it's the sun shining with me as well, which is great. So the first question I've got for you, so for the people that are out there that don't know who you are and what GosuRabbit actually do, perhaps you could just fill them in a little bit, please.
For sure. So I'm Nick. I'm the co-founder and CEO of GosuRabbit, and we're a strategic gaming and esports agency. And there's two main ways that we kind of help companies. So the first way is with brands, agencies, entities, etc., who are looking for maybe insights or strategical help with getting involved in the industry or expanding what they're already doing. We can help them with that. Then the second way is more on the activation side, whereby they want to use the strategy to actually do some marketing to Gen X, Y, and Z, using this industry as a marketing channel.
Lovely, very well put. Thank you. So if we could cast our mind back to sort of March last year, I know you launched GosuRabbit in sort of Feb last year, didn't you?
Yeah, exactly. So bit of a baptism of fire.
So obviously, coupled with the fact that you were about to launch a new business and this thing's coming over from Asia that's called COVID or something or other, at what point around that period of time did you think this might be a bit of a challenge for us?
Well, we were thinking about it as, you know, like everybody was watching the news, what was happening. WHO was saying all these different things. And I think it was once lockdown hit, the reality struck. You know, we were thankfully in a position whereby we'd brought on board a few clients very early on when we started. But I suppose like any new business, well, most new businesses, the big core strategy is to bring on board new clients, and that was ours as well. And as soon as lockdown hit, a lot of the conversations we were having just went to square one. You know, when people don't know, will they still have a job? Is their company even going to be around over the next few weeks or months? You know, what's happening to the world? Suddenly, it's, do we work with GosuRabbit becomes less of a priority. So we had a bit of a struggle at that point, for sure.
I bet you did, yeah, as did a lot of people, I think, for very similar reasons. So I always like to focus on the wins, though. So what wins have you actually seen since you started the business and the world went into lockdown, shall we say?
Definitely. I think, you know, thinking back now, there were some interesting ways that we won. A couple spring to mind. So one more internal win was that it gave us the time to amend the services that we could deliver to our clients, and that's kind of evolved to now. Because, you know, as a new business, I mentioned that you're kind of struggling or pushing to get that new business, and sometimes the foundations kind of are lacking there. So we were able to refocus and better focus the what we can offer to our clients to give them better solutions. But also from a more macro level, it put a huge spotlight on the gaming and esports scene. And a lot of people, when you ask them, you know, do you know anything about gaming or esports, or what do you know? It's the mental image comes up of a teenager sitting in their parents' basement or dungeon playing games all day, and it's, you know, it's not a good use of their time. So the fact that the game and esports industry is one of the few industries during COVID that actually increased in revenue, had record profits, I think put a big kind of focus on it, and companies are like, oh, okay, a lot of our target audience is there, maybe it's something we should look into as well. So it helped us in our conversations with people who are looking into it, that they're already starting that process.
Good, that's fantastic, and it's good to know there are certain industries that thrive during lockdown, definitely. So, what sort of were your main challenges that you had around lockdown, and how did you manage to adapt to them?
There are, of course, a lot of challenges. I think one of the biggest ones is initially, being in the gaming world, we were going to be a mixture of an online and offline company, and part of that would be like in terms of offline would be attending events, and that was to do new business, meet people face to face, and kind of get our name out there, kind of thing. But of course that disappeared. We couldn't meet people. So yeah, the biggest challenge I think is transitioning from an offline business to a pure online business. Yeah, I think that would be the biggest one.
And how did you manage to make that transition happen and work for you, Nick?
So a lot of it was back when I mentioned about reforming our processes. We really had to think around, okay, we've got to scrap all this stuff and just go, right, it's pure online. What can we do to make things better, right? So one of the things is, okay, person-to-person contact is, of course, the best form of communication. How can we make the best of it? And it was around that time where, I don't even remember, Zoom was becoming a thing and people were buying shares of the wrong Zoom, which made it go catapult. And
I didn't know that.
yeah, so like there's another company called Zoom, and just people were buying it because it was the wrong one, and it's insane things were happening. And anyway, so we're trying to figure out what were the right tools, and then we're trying to recreate, for example, when you're in an office and you have an environment where people are at their desks and people just come to your desk and have those informal chats where ideas get formed and you can talk less formally, which I think is really great. Is how can we recreate that online? And we found the tools and the necessary software in order to do that. So that helped our kind of transition and helped us to overcome a lot of the problems we saw.
Good stuff. So were there any changes, anything you did during lockdown that was as a result of lockdown that you're actually going to carry on doing? And now we've moved into the, now we've sort of come out of the other side, fingers crossed.
Oh, for sure. I think if we didn't take a lot of the aspects that we've learned forwards, it would have been a huge waste. But I think there's a lot of aspects we can keep. I mean, for example, an office, our goal was eventually to have an office, but now we could put that even further into the future because we're working a lot more effectively at home, and a lot of our team really appreciate that because there's no, especially if you're based in a big city, there's no 1-2 hour commute each way. Hundreds of pounds you save every month. If you're paying £5-10 a day on lunch, you save all that. So I think definitely those aspects of things we'll keep, and how we're working online, and making sure we go onto video calls like this so that the team members see each other when they're having proper meetings, I think is a really important aspect too.
Absolutely. I think a few people have had to adapt that way. I mean, obviously for you it's been different because, like you say, you only set up a month before lockdown, but a few people have had to really transition. It's been a huge change for them, and it's something that not everyone has been able to make work that well immediately, so which is understandable. So what would you say you've learned about yourself during lockdown then, would you say, Nick?
I think probably the biggest thing is resilience. I think if we can start a business in the midst of probably one of the biggest crises, at least in my lifetime, and we can come out like in a much stronger position and thrive from that, with all the challenges that we had, having to completely transition everything and our business model and all that kind of aspect. And especially when you're a new business, you don't have as much revenues, cash reserves, or long-term clients as you would if you're more established and may be able to weather the storm or change a few bits here or there. We had to completely change everything. So I think the resilience to kind of get through that, all the tough times to this point, I think is the thing that I've most learned about myself.
So you feel like you're invincible now then, right? Now you've worked through that, anything's possible, yeah?
Almost, yeah. It's like, oh, what, this little challenge? Well, try going through lockdown.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, something to tell your kids and grandkids about, right?
Exactly, for sure.
Good stuff.
They probably wouldn't believe it unless it was all in the papers and everything.
Absolutely, yeah, you're right. It's certainly been an interesting time to live through, and I think resilience, it has been something that a lot of people have come up with that answer as well. So it's good to know we've become more resilient as human beings after all this, because you know what, there are going to be more challenges ahead. They're all going to be different. We're not going to be able to predict them. So if that's enhanced if that's helped us grow as people in during lockdown, then that's great for the future. So Nick, I've got to ask you this question. So after the initial lockdown sort of came and went, you were allowed out into the big wide world. What was the number one thing you did?
I think that would be seeing family, the first thing. Not seeing family for that long, I think, is quite difficult for most people, and so that's definitely the first. After that, I think I went to a restaurant to see what it was like. I think that was around about, you remember they did the help out eat out thing, so I tried that. And then, but from a business point of view, it was meeting the team for the first time, which
Wow.
actually happened last week in London.
Really?
Yeah. So our team is kind of based in different countries. So, the whole traffic light system has made meeting up very complicated. And we've got a couple, for example, we've got a couple of people living in France. And they created a special category for France, the Amber Plus, and where if they came for one day, they had to quarantine for like 10 days or something. So they finally lifted that. We were like, right, let's get everybody over, and finally met up. So I think that was really great to be able to do that. And I'm like, my business partner, I hadn't met with him since before we started the company. So,
Amazing. It's obviously work for you, but at the same time, it is lovely to meet up with people face to face and just act normally, basically.
Yeah.
Brilliant,
Sure.
brilliant. So for the people that are actually watching this right now, the final two questions I've got for you: if your ideal client is watching this, or someone that you can really help, what would that person look like? What would the business look like, and how would you help them?
Okay, so I suppose there'd be two different kinds of clients for different things. I kind of alluded to it earlier. So the first one would be any kind of company or agency or government body that is looking to either get into or understand the space a lot better. So just an example, it could be an investor who has heard about the industry and how it's growing and is doing big things, and they want to understand or getting some insights. Maybe they want to understand which companies to go for, or they don't really know what the ecosystem is like, etc. Or it could be a big brand that is looking to get involved, and they're like, okay, well, how can we actually market to these people? And we're not gaming brands, so how does that work, and all this kind of stuff. So we can help them with that aspect. The second part is more, it's kind of similar. It's brands and agencies and entities who are looking to or finding that traditional marketing isn't working as well as it used to. The Gen X, Y, and Z demographic, their attention is less on TV and more on playing games and watching Netflix, right? It's a very different kind of media consumption to what it was even 10 years ago. So they're looking to get in front of those people. They want to know where they are, so gaming esports, and they want to know how to get in front of them, and then we can help them with activations in terms of like, okay, we can do this and this and this, and then go and activate that and then run them through the whole process. And I know you're going to say, Phil, well, Nick, that just sounds like everybody, right? And I mean, it does sound quite broad, I'll give that to you, but for example, we're in discussions with, or have worked with, or these brands might have already got involved, maybe without our help, but the likes of Saint Laurent, Coca-Cola, HSBC, Bandai Namco, who are a massive gaming publisher, Decathlon, the sports brands, Nike. There's a ton of huge companies who are either getting involved or are wanting to and wanting to know more. And so it can literally cover a vast spectrum of companies.
Fantastic answer. So what sort of role within the business would these people have? Marketing directors, or what sort of role would they have?
Yeah, it tends to be marketing directors, CMOs. Sometimes if it's more on the consultancy or strategic side, it can be CEO, COO, that kind of person. But it really depends. Like I'm sure you're aware, especially in bigger companies and organizations, there are all kinds of different titles which have different kinds of job specs and responsibilities that they do that kind of overlap. So I suppose if gaming is interesting for them, or if they want to know if gaming is interesting for them and esports, then we can have initial chat just to, number one, see do they need some help, or could this be something that could be interesting for them, and then number two, if it is, then how we could potentially help them to hit their goals.
That's brilliant, Nick. So final question is, how can people reach you if they want to find out more about what you do and how you help people?
Definitely. So there's a variety of different ways. I don't know if you'll put my LinkedIn in the description, but LinkedIn, email, website. If you see any of our team members, the GosuRabbit team, then feel free to reach out to any of us. And yeah, we'll be happy to have a chat and see if gaming's the right avenue and how we can help.
Lovely. Fantastic, Neil. It's been an absolute pleasure as always. thank you so much for your time, and yeah, catch up soon.
Definitely. Thanks very much for having me, Phil. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.